Have you ever wondered if the very system designed to educate us might actually be the one that limits us the most? Imagine being born with an innate curiosity, a natural thirst to explore, to question, to feel the world in its raw and vibrant state, only to be placed in a room, at a desk, surrounded by walls, schedules, tests, and rules. Now imagine spending over a decade there, day after day, year after year. What if I told you that many of the thoughts you believe to be your own, many of the dreams you abandoned, and much of the anxiety you carry are not yours, but were planted, shaped, and reinforced by an invisible machine? A machine that begins its work the moment you're old enough to hold a pencil. And what if I told you, by the end of this video, you'll see clearly the subtle and not so subtle ways in which this machine operates and how to break free from it? The last insight we'll share in this video will be the most powerful of all, because it doesn't just explain the problem, it offers the key to reclaiming your mind. So stay until the end. But before we dive deeper, if you're someone who's passionate about psychology, philosophy, and decoding the hidden layers of human behavior, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. What was school like for you? Did it awaken your potential or suppress it? Your story matters, and it might just inspire someone else who's been silently questioning the same things. Let us begin this journey by asking a painful yet necessary question. What is the real purpose of school? On the surface, we're told it's about education, about preparing us for life. But as Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, once noted, the greatest achievements of the human mind are often those it accomplishes in spite of, not because of, institutional education. Schopenhauer saw schools as places of conformity, not of liberation. He argued that true knowledge comes from reflection, from suffering, from confronting life directly, not memorizing lifeless facts for tests we forget within a week. Nature, too, wasn't kind to formal education. For him, schooling was a factory of mediocrity. State education, he wrote, makes the individual superfluous. It seeks not the exceptional, but the average. And herein lies one of the first wounds that school inflicts upon us. From childhood, it teaches us to fear standing out, to shrink ourselves into sameness, to value obedience over originality, to chase gold stars and grades instead of truth. From the moment a child enters the system, they're taught to raise their hand, to speak, to ask for permission to use the bathroom, to sit for hours on end, regardless of how their body or mind feels. This is not education, it's conditioning. The goal isn't to nurture the individual, but to shape a compliant worker, a predictable consumer, a quiet citizen. Think about this. When was the last time school taught you to deeply know yourself, to understand your emotions, to trust your intuition? Instead, we were trained to look outward for answers, to doubt our inner voice, to compare, compete, and conform. And this goes deeper than we think. When children express curiosity or creativity that doesn't fit the curriculum, they are often labeled disruptive. A child who questions too much is seen as a problem. But, as Schopenhauer warned, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Yet schools often punish the very minds that see what others can't. They smother the visionary to protect the standard. And the damage is not just intellectual, it's emotional. How many of us carry a subtle, persistent feeling of inadequacy because of grades we received in school? How many still fear speaking up because a teacher once mocked us in front of the class? How many stopped painting, writing, singing, or dreaming because someone told us we weren't good enough? School teaches us to attach our self-worth to performance, to external validation, and when that validation doesn't come, we begin to shrink inside. This is not by accident. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that systems of control survive by manufacturing weakness. He argued that society, including its educational systems, often seeks to tame the wildness of the human spirit, to mold individuals into something predictable, manageable. The school, in this view, becomes a training ground for obedience, not excellence. And this obedience often extends beyond the classroom. Once conditioned, we continue to seek approval from bosses, institutions, even social media likes, rarely questioning the system itself. We become excellent at playing roles, but poor at knowing who we truly are underneath the mask. But here's a deeper question. What if the very anxiety, burnout, and existential confusion so many adults feel today is not a flaw of the individual, but a symptom of a childhood spent in a system that never taught us how to think, only what to think? This is why both Nietzsche and Schopenhauer stressed solitude, self-reflection, and suffering as paths to true knowledge. They believed that only by breaking away from herd thinking could one become truly free. Nietzsche, in particular, championed the idea of the Übermensch, the self-overcoming human who creates his own values, breaks his own chains, and refuses to be shaped by systems that diminish him. But how do we do that? How do we undo years, sometimes decades, of programming? How do we begin to question the unquestionable? And most importantly, how do we reclaim our minds, not just intellectually, but spiritually, emotionally, and existentially? Imagine for a moment that you are not a person, but a product, shaped and delivered into a society that values efficiency over essence. The school system we inherited wasn't built to awaken souls. It was engineered to manufacture obedient workers. Bells, uniforms, rows of desks, echoes of the factory floor. We learned to memorize, not to question, to perform, not to feel. And the cost of that conditioning is profound. Adults who fear failure, chase approval, and mistake productivity for purpose. Nietzsche called this the death of authenticity. Schopenhauer called it the tragedy of conformity. True education begins only when the mind rebels against the machine. Real education is not about facts, it's the courage to think, to feel, to create meaning from within. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can we become when we were trained to imitate? The journey of unlearning begins with solitude. Schopenhauer walked alone. Nietzsche climbed mountains to silence the herd inside his head. Solitude is not loneliness, it's liberation, the space where the mind remembers itself. And then comes the shadow, the forgotten parts buried beneath obedience. Jung called it the unconscious self, holding our repressed curiosity and wildness. Only by bringing that darkness to light can we heal the wounds schooling left behind, the fear of being wrong, the shame of being different. Healing demands meaning. Viktor Frankl found that humans can survive anyhow if they have a why. And your why is never in grades or titles. It lives in what you love enough to suffer for. To reclaim your mind, reclaim your body, the rhythm, the instinct, the passion that classrooms silenced. Nietzsche urged us to live with intensity, to let thoughts dance with desire. When that transformation begins, permission is no longer needed. You stop asking institutions to define your worth. You realize rebellion was remembrance, the return to yourself. Schopenhauer and Nietzsche both knew systems can inform, but only life can awaken. You were never meant to fit into the system. You were meant to outgrow it. True education is not preparation for life. It is life itself. It begins the moment you dare to think, feel, and create meaning no test can measure. So ask yourself, what belief taught to you in school no longer serves you? What dream did you abandon to fit in? And when will you reclaim it? Because school ends, but education, the kind that makes you fully alive, never does.